Let's talk balloons, shall we? This is one of the craziest stories. I mean, think about, of all the news stories that we've had to deal with over the past couple of years, this one ranks up there, man, isn't it? This whole thing is weird. But it's playing out along typical lines, this balloon story. And the real story is being missed, of course. Republicans are saying that this is basically an invasion of the United States by the Chinese, that they're stealing all of our secrets. To be fair, mostly neoconservatives, the ones who want us in forever wars. But a lot of even level-headed Republicans are like, yeah, look, they're attacking us. They're invading us. Maybe. Or maybe it's just a balloon. Democrats, for their part, they're blaming Trump because the same balloons flew over the United States when Trump was president. Why didn't he shoot them down? It's Trump's fault, Democrats have been saying. But they're both sort of on the same page on what they want, which is they really would love a war with China. They really want to stir up the pot. So, they wanted to blame Trump on all of this, but then we learned today that Trump's general, Mad Dog Mattis, knew about it and kept it quiet from Trump because he, and according to the headlines, treason, says the Gateway pundit. Representative Waltz says DOD told him China's spy balloons crossed the U.S. during the Trump years, but General Mattis did not tell Trump. Thought that he was too aggressive. Yeah, that apparently Mad Dog Mattis knew about it but kept it quiet because he thought Trump was too aggressive. The guy's nickname is literally Mad Dog.
I was just going to say, that's kind of ironic.
Right. Mad Dog thinks that Trump was too aggressive. By the way, Trump is the only president in recent memory who hasn't added an additional war to our list of countries we are at war with. He's the only one. They've all added wars. Trump didn't. So he's too aggressive? Okay. So here's Congressman Waltz admitting this on television to Stu Varney. Watch.
Balloons floating around under Trump.
I do think this is spin on the Biden White House's part to say, well, it happened back then. They didn't shoot it down and therefore to justify their dithering and inaction here. My office has been briefed by the Office of Secretary of Defense and the current Pentagon that it happened over Florida, it happened over Texas, and that it's happened before. We have more detailed questions, but what's unclear, Stu, and this is the key point, is did the Pentagon under the Trump administration brief the Trump White House and give them the option to take action, or did they decide not to brief them for whatever reason? And there's some speculation. I've talked to Trump White House officials over the weekend that the Pentagon deliberately didn't because they thought Trump would be too provocative and too aggressive. So that's what we need to get to the bottom of. And one person I'm waiting to hear from that we haven't heard from in that whole list is former Secretary of Defense and General Mattis, who was the secretary during this time period. What did he know and what did he decide to pass on and brief to the president?
So he's traitorous, right? If that's true, he's not the commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief is the president of the United States. So you have information that China has balloons overhead. Whether are they nefarious or not? Are they just weather balloons? Are they actually communications? Are they studying our nuclear power plants? By the way, is it the 1950s where we're using balloons to do this stuff? We use drones now, high-tech drones and satellites that can read license plates from outer space. You really need a freaking balloon? Okay. But anyway, if he kept this from him, isn't that treasonous? Literally kept it from the president of the United States. But this is all a distraction, though, because the reason we're now hearing about these balloons with all of these great photos that Philip was just showing a second ago and the close-up video. Can we play it again? All of these great photos and the close-up videos of this thing being shot down. Look at this. It's being shot down out of the air with jets because they want you to see it. The reason that we're seeing this is because they want you to see it. They want you to feel threatened by this. In my opinion, the real story is that both liberals and neoconservatives see this balloon incident as a real threat. And the deep state is making sure that they feel this way, making sure that you feel this way. It's a reason to basically batten down the hatches. Send more battleships to the Taiwan Strait in the South China Sea. Send more weapons to Taiwan. Hey, Kevin McCarthy, why don't you make that trip a little sooner to Taiwan that you're planning? You know, the one that Nancy Pelosi just made? You should make yours soon, too, so you can tell Taiwan that we stand with them and against China's tyranny. You know, they're scared of China because China is going to be the number one global dominant force here very shortly. And the U.S. dollar, the U.S. hegemony is crumbling. So we need incidents like this to be scared of the Chinese. So it's all a distraction. You have both sides playing out exactly how the deep state wants it to, right? Republicans are saying this, Democrats are saying this, and the truth is, right, they just want you to be upset about it. They want you to be, the boogeyman here is China. Just look at how the New York Times, the liberal New York Times, covered this story. This is David Sanger, their reporter. He's basically a neocon, by the way. We've covered him on the show before. They're worried about what China is up to. Here's the New York Times headline. Balloon incident reveals more than spying as competition with China intensifies. There's nothing new about superpowers spying on one another, even from balloons. But for pure gall, there was something different this time. David Sanger at the New York Times. Sanger says in this piece that China has failed to communicate on the issue to Washington. They failed to communicate on this issue. If this balloon went errant, it got out of hand. Because you can't control balloons, by the way. Have you ever lost a child's balloon after a birthday party? You cannot control it. There's no saving that balloon.
I think the string broke. That's what happened.
There's no controlling that. Oh, Daddy, can you get me another one? Sorry, it's gone. It's now in the belly of a sea turtle. So Sanger says, David Sanger for the New York Times writes this in his piece, that China has failed to communicate on the issue to Washington, that all of this could have been avoided if only China had told us about it, he says. He says, quote, this was hardly a life-threatening crisis, but the fact that Chinese officials realizing that the balloon had been spotted did not call to work out a way to deal with it was revealing, the New York Times says. It was revealing. Of course, it was a total lie. In fact, China did tell the United States about it repeatedly. Here's a statement from the Chinese government. Question. According to media reports, a Chinese unmanned airship has been spotted. This is on the 3rd of February. Has been spotted in U.S. airspace. Do you have any comment about it? The 3rd of February. Today is the 6th of February. Answer. The airship is from China, China says. Look, the airship is from China. It's a civilian airship used for research, mainly meteorological purposes, affected by the westerly winds and with limited self-steering capability. The airship deviated far from its planned course. The Chinese side regrets the unattended entry of the airship into U.S. airspace due to force majeure. The Chinese side will continue communicating with the United States side and properly handle this unexpected situation caused by force majeure, things outside of their control. So
the U.S. so badly wants this to be a U-2. They're like, that's what they want. They're like, God, oh, look, we got him. Look, it's right there. It's a balloon.
Spy plane.
You know,
it's a spy plane.
Exactly. the balloon, the most versatile, like, conspiracy theory craft ever made. It can be a UFO if you want it to. It can, it's just amazing.
Right. It's like at Roswell, the cover up there. It's like Jesse Marcel. Like, so the day after, literally, they're recovering bodies and Roswell and craft and literally working in the Air Force. Right. So they have the craft. And he's looking at this material that they can't even believe, right? This like a thin aluminum that like folded together, like goes right back. The next day he's called in and they're like, here's what you found. It was a weather balloon. Here it is. Hold it up for a photo. And he's like, this isn't what it was. What are you talking about? This like sad photo of Jesse Marcel sitting there with this weather balloon, right? He's like, this is a lie. This is a cover up. Like, what are you doing? This is not real. It's a great photo, by the way. It's the classic photo of the weather balloon. So you're right. Weather balloons have been used for years as, covering of conspiracy theories. So Washington knew about this because China was communicating with them about this. So they had an open and It's like, do you ever, I don't know, you ever get in an argument with somebody where you're having an argument with somebody, you guys are working it out, but then you find out like the one party in the argument suddenly tells somebody else, and then you hear from it from other people, and you're like, well, I thought you and I were working this out ourselves. Why did you have to go and tell Martha about it? Or, you know, like, what are you doing? So Washington knew about it.
Philip, can you roll the clip really quick of the mainstream media telling everybody that China was communicating with us what it was? Could you play that clip really quick?
Yeah, I don't think we have that clip.
Let me see if I got that queued up.
Yeah, no.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
No, the mainstream media will not tell us that. In fact, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, canceled his trip to China, to Beijing, because of this. Mr. Blinken called the Chinese surveillance, quote, an irresponsible act and a clear violation of U.S. sovereignty and international law, he says. Watch this.
U.S. airspace is a clear violation of U.S. sovereignty and international law, that it's an irresponsible act, and that the PRC's decision to take this action on the eve of my planned visit is detrimental to the substantive discussions that we were prepared to have. I told Director Wong that the United States remains committed to diplomatic engagement with China and that I plan to visit Beijing when conditions allow. In the meantime, the United States will continue to maintain open lines of communication with China, including to address this ongoing incident. Indeed, that's why we need direct and regular communications in the first place, and that's why it's critical that such lines remain open at all times to help avoid miscalculation and conflict.
Yeah. So you're canceling your trip because of a weather balloon. China's decision to take this action on the eve of my planned visit is detrimental to the substantive discussions that we were prepared to have. So, you know, we were going to talk peace and have substantive discussions. Now we're not. We're probably going to send more weapons to Taiwan because you're a weather balloon. Blinken is also wrong, by the way. He's also wrong, by the way. Blinken is wrong with regards to international law, because if you look into this, the space between the highest level jet fighters can fly, which is about 18 kilometers, or 60,000 feet, and outer space, where satellites fly, is legally undefined. So we don't have treaties to define that space where this balloon was. Technically, there are no treaties for this. There's no international laws for that space where this balloon was. And it's mostly considered unused space because it's in between satellites and it's higher than where aircraft can fly. So you're wrong on that account. There is no treaty. It's not a violation of American sovereignty. It's literally a weather balloon. Again, so, and maybe it is something more nefarious. I don't know. But the point is, you've got satellites, which are far more accurate. You've got high-tech drones if they're going to be spying on us. It's hovering over Malmstrom Air Force Base. At one point, it was like way up in the sky above at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. It's been there since the 1940s. Like, it's not like it's new news that there's nuclear weapons at Malmstrom Air Force Base. Everyone knows there's weapons at Malmstrom Air Force Base. That's new. Like, what can you really glean from a photo that high in the sky anyway? Like, yep, they're still there. We got it. That's ridiculous. Yeah, it's absolutely
I think
ridiculous.
they really missed an opportunity. They should have written happy birthday on it just so that it was even more confusing. So,
yeah.
In Japanese, though.
In Japanese.
You know, I think it's, imagine being that citizen. Like, excuse me, my balloon experiment, I was looking at weather and everything, and it just kind of like got out of hand, and I think it's heading towards the United States, and the Chinese leaders are like, oh my gosh.
Well, and there's a couple of
coming tomorrow.
I know, and what's crazy is, like, I was looking at a whole bunch of different physics related stuff to this balloon, diving into like all sorts of craziness on this, because not craziness, like actual math on this. And according to scientists, they're like, if it's that size, it's literally about the same size as 3 buses. That's how big this thing is. When it's in that area of the jet stream and it gets out of control like that, no one can control it. It's uncontrollable. So this idea that they could have just like steered it back and it would have been fine. No, sorry. It's out of control, gone. Like, it's not capable of being turned around and flown back like a drone. It's just the way these things operate. So, and these same balloons have been filmed all over China. Like I've seen photos of these things, these exact same weather balloons that are with measurement instruments, meteorological measurements as well. So, but we should all be scared because that's what they want you to be. They want you to be scared about this. So be more scared about China. That's what we want. That's what the United States wants. So someone in the chat was saying, JP Smart says, a UFO, really? Yeah, of course. Roswell incident, of course. Here's what I was talking about. This is the famous photo of Jesse Marcel. Like, he's like, okay, this is the next day. They make him pose with this material. This is Jesse Marcel. And who's an intelligence officer with a 509th Bomb Group at Roswell. And of course, his son has written an amazing book, Jesse Marcel Jr. I encourage all of you to read it. If you care about this stuff, read Jesse Marcel's amazing book on this. Because his dad came home that day after they recovered the UFO, the craft. And it was then shipped off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They were looking at the materials. He even had materials they showed his son. Then the next day, they call him in to take photos. Because what's amazing is the Air Force initially released the story. The initial story, the Air Force came out and announced that they had recovered a disc, that they recovered a crashed UFO. The U.S. Air Force announced that they did, and then they backtracked the story. And then they made him pose with this like fake weather balloon stuff. Like, what you found was a weather balloon. And he's like, what? No, I didn't. Here's another photo from it. Look at this. This is like, they're like laying it out on the floor in the office. Like, this is what you saw. He's like, no, I didn't. This is like tin foil that in tatters. This isn't what I saw. This is not what I saw at all. But okay, you're going to make me take these photos? The cover up. So good. Yeah. Read, I think it's called, the book is called The Day After Roswell. Or no, that's by Philip Corso. But there's a couple of great books. Jesse Marcel Jr.'s great book, and Philip Corso, Colonel Corso, was put in charge of this program, and on his deathbed, like, told the story. It's pretty amazing. So check it out. Check it out if you're into that. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.